Hello everybody. I just thought I'd share with you a technique I have been using to mark students' work remotely. During this period, we've all had to adapt to what is very difficult working practices and have been forced in some instances to learn things that we never thought we would have to learn, adapt new techniques in order to engage with our students and help assess their work. Some of these techniques I found quite difficult to adapt to. Screencasting, making video lessons, etc., have all been quite tough. But eventually, I think I've got to the point where I'm quite confident with those things. And I'm hoping that some of the skills I've learned during this period I can use in the future when things return to a normal kind of teaching practice. But there's one particular technique that I've learned and I had to adapt in the last couple of months that I definitely think is something I'll integrate into my normal teaching practice and is going to transform how I go about my day-to-day business. And I just thought I'd share it with you and talk you through my journey of how I came up with this particular technique. Now, I'm not going to claim credit for inventing this technique. It's just using technology that already exists and other things that other people are doing. But it's just my take on how I'm using this to change something that I do. And it all revolves around assessing students' work. Now, during this lockdown period, I was facing a really frustrating issue with being able to assess students' work. Now, in my subject, and I'm sure in most of the other subjects that exist, whether it be an A-level or GCSE, the assessments that students take at the end of their time studying will be written work. So they'll be sitting written exam papers, pen and paper, traditional kind of format. And while that is still true, I will always ask my students to submit work to me in writing. I don't think there's any use for them practicing word processing their ideas. I'd much rather my students were writing down their ideas in the more traditional way because that's what they're going to have to do in the exam. So I think I will always, until the exam board say otherwise, I will also always ask my students to submit work in written format until the exams go fully digital, which I can't see happening anytime soon. So I think it's important that students are still writing work and presenting work in that format. There's another reason why in my subject in particular, I need students to be doing work using handwritten formats. We have a particularly weird technique in economics that involves, in particularly with writing essays, integrating diagrams into work. And it's always quite difficult to do that using Word. It actually makes it slightly longer to do so. So I like my students to draw their diagrams using a traditional pen and ruler, and then they use their kind of written notes to explain what's going on in the diagram. And that's a difficult thing to do coherently in Word. So I need my students to be writing work and sending to me their written work. So that is the key. And that was a problem I was faced with because I was asking students to complete work for me and then send it in that written format, handwritten format. And I was getting all sorts of weird and wonderful approaches to this early on in the lockdown period. So students would be taking pictures of their work like this, which is, telling me that they've done some work, but is quite difficult for me to mark and assess. This bright lad thought it would be, I thought this is brilliant, a good idea to take a picture on his phone of his computer screen where his work had been typed up. Now, baffles me that. Why didn't you just send me the file? He's on a computer. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, he did that. And I was getting inundated with JPEG images, photo images of work that students had done. And work in that format, in JPEG format or whatever picture format they ended up sending it to me in, I was finding increasingly difficult to engage with and mark and interact with. I mean, I could read it okay, but marking it and annotating it was difficult, near impossible. So this was a real problem for me because my traditional style of marking, I'm a bit old school in this sense, is to have a bit of paper in front of me and a pen and be able to annotate work, interact with work, scribble stuff out, write comments, put smiley faces on work if I need to, or angry faces. And I couldn't do any of that with these image files I was getting sent. I was getting really frustrated by it and I couldn't mark it appropriately. So I needed to find a solution. So the first solution, and I'm not going to claim credit for this one, this is something that's been around for ages and was just pointed out to me by Charlie in maths, was to get my students using much more readily the CAM Scanner app. So the Can Scanner app has revolutionised the way my students send me work. They all know how to use it now, converts their phone into a scanner effectively, and any work that they do, handwritten work that they do, is transformed into PDF format. Now, PDF format is a much more useful format for their work, and I can use it much, much easier. I can use PDF format much, much easier. I can mark it much more appropriately. Now, this is an example of some work that got sent to me in PDF format. So here we have some work, an exam paper sent to me. This student has filled it in using pen and paper and I've sent them this the work in Word. They printed it out at home and they filled it out by hand. And it actually, in some instances, I'd handed them the paper before lockdown began, so they had all the papers ready to fill in. And this is somebody who scanned their work in using the Can Scan app, and it's come back to me in PDF format. Now, I'll just show you something you can do when work gets sent into you in PDF format using Adobe Acrobat. So this is another piece of work that I've imported into Adobe. So this has been scanned in by a student using the Can Scanner app, and this is an exam paper the student did by hand and has filled it in. And I can mark this using Adobe Acrobat. So if you look down here, there's a comment function down here. If I click on this, a toolbar should pop up across the top of the page like this. And there's all sorts of tools and things that I can do to this document now, which essentially enable me to interact with it and mark it. So I can click the pen button here, I can give things a tick, I can suggest it's out of 1 mark. If I wanted to, I could highlight bits that they've done. Whoops, sorry, didn't quite press the button there. So here's my highlighter function, I can highlight work. And if I really wanted to, I could select a text box here and write a comment about the student's work. So I might say spelling, question mark. Irony there of misspelling the word spelling. So that was something I was trialing at the beginning of the lockdown, and I was using this as a way of marking students' work. And obviously, if you save this, it saves it as a file, and then all the marking is kept, and you don't lose anything. And I was doing exam papers a bit like that, but I did find that problematic and a bit cumbersome for other reasons. And the main reason is I was trying to do all of that using a mouse. And that was quite frustrating because a mouse is not a particularly good input tool, particularly if you're trying to write things and tick things. So I quickly gave up on mouse and got myself one of these. Now this is a really sort of entry-level trackpad and pen. And I got this off Amazon using the departmental budget. And it only cost, so I'm just hoping this loads up nice and quickly. It only cost around about, I think 39 quid, just under 40 quid. I'm just waiting for the link to load up. And this is a fantastic bit of kit that has enabled me to start writing on screen using freehand pen in a way that I would be doing using pen and paper. No, it's still not loading up, but I'll show you the link to the Amazon page in a minute. So my computer's buffering. Here we go. Yeah. So this is the thing. It only costs $39.99, and it is a fantastic bit of kit. It loaded up really quickly, and I was able to use this to interact with my documents a bit more readily. So that was the mouse done away with, and now I'm using a trackpad to mark. But I still wasn't particularly enjoying marking using Adobe with my PDF documents. So I then quickly decided, with some conversations I had with colleagues, to start importing my PDF files, or say the PDF files my students have sent me, into OneNote. Now OneNote has transformed how I mark. It's a much more intuitive and easier to understand program, and you can do a lot more with it than you can with Adobe. And I'll show you, I'll try and illustrate that to you now. So here's some work that I've imported into OneNote. So I've recently set all my Year 12 students some mock exam papers, and they complete their mock exam papers at home. They took a picture of all of their pages that they completed in their exam packs using the Cam Scanner app. They then put it into a PDF file, sent it to me. I opened it up and printed it to OneNote, and I've now got all of my Year 12's work here down the side here in different notebooks within OneNote. So if I just click on here, it should load up Amelia's paper. So this is Amelia's paper that I've printed to OneNote, and I've already started marking this, as you can see. And OneNote is a much more intuitive way of marking the students' work. And you can see my handwriting's terrible, but you can see my scribbling here and my annotations around the students' work using OneNote. So you just simply choose the draw function up here. You choose what colour pen you like. Obviously, traditionally you mark in red. And now down here, you've got your pen ready to mark. And using my stylus, pen and pad, I can look at the student's work and I can mark it using, here you go. Yeah, that's right. Tick. And you can do all that. You can do everything you would hope to be able to do on a pen and paper. And if you did want to type in comments, you can also do that by adding text boxes, a bit like you could do on Adobe. But I just find it a much more intuitive way of marking students' work. It's much easier. Now, once you've finished marking work using OneNote, you can save it as a PDF file, and then you just send it back to the students. And then you've got a record of all the marking that you've done, and you haven't had any paper to deal with in that process. It's all completely online. And this, I think, has revolutionised something I'm going to be doing in the near future. So I just want to share an idea with you, something that I certainly think I'm going to adapt going forward. So an interesting question is, will this change anything? Will this change anything that I do going forwards? Now, I absolutely think it will. The ability for students to scan their work into PDF format and send it to me, I can then put it into my OneNote and start marking it in that format, means that I'm no longer dealing with paper. I don't have to collect in any paper, and that's going to absolutely change my life. So I could finish a lesson where students have done a piece of assessed work, coming to the end of the lesson, I'll say, right, I want to mark this work that you've done, but I don't want to collect it in, so can you get your phones out? Can you take a picture of it on your desk? Just quickly take a picture of it. They've done it in a minute. Send it to me. I've now got all these emails of the work that they've done. I save all those PDF files. I open up in OneNote, and now I'm ready to mark it. I haven't collected any work from them. It's all done remotely. And this is something that I think is going to change everything that I do. I no longer have to carry around piles and piles of students' work to mark because I've got it all saved. And then this last bit is absolutely, for me, revolutionary. So you can get a OneNote app on your phone. You can get a OneNote app on your phone. And the beautiful thing about OneNote is no matter what device you've got it open on, everything you're currently working on is shared across all your devices. It syncs remotely. So any marking that I've got on OneNote on my desktop will also be accessible on my OneNote on my phone. So I can now mark stuff on my phone. I can mark students' work on my phone. And I just want to show you a quick example of that using my phone. So if I just if I use my technology to my best of my ability here. So, whoops. So this is my phone currently. And on my phone, you can see all my apps. And here you can see my OneNote app. So if I open up my OneNote app down here, if I go to my, I haven't named this folder, but here's all my marking that I've been working on. This is all the students' work that sent me last week. So if I go to Mafusa's work, for example, there's her current work. And if I wanted to, on my phone, I could mark that work. So if I click on here and I click on the pen function, I can look at the work. If I turn it in portrait style, it sometimes works a bit better. So here I have the work to mark, and I can annotate stuff, I can tick stuff, I can highlight stuff. And if I wanted to, I could write comments. Now, writing with your finger on here is a bit tricky, so I'll try and write good work, but it doesn't work particularly well. So if I didn't like that, I could delete it. I could rub it out, and that didn't work. I don't like that very much. Whoops. Delete that. But if I didn't like the way that was going, I can type in work comments. So I can just write good work using my touchpad. Or, and this bit is brilliant, if I really wanted to and I was feeling really lazy, I could use the dictation function on my phone to dictate a comment. So, well done. I like the way you structured this paragraph. 10 marks. And now I've got the comment I needed in the work and I continue on marking. Now, obviously there is a danger that if you're carrying your marking around on your phone all the time, that you're going to be thinking about marking every moment you can. But if you're anything like me, then using small moments when you're sitting idly waiting for your daughter to finish her swimming lesson, or you're sitting idly waiting in the car to pick up your daughter from a friend's house, then just marking a few scripts while you're sitting there just reduces your workload, makes you a bit more efficient. And I found that the discovery that I could mark work on my phone to be something quite revolutionary. The other thing that I clearly want to draw your attention to is the fact that I'm no longer going to need to carry pieces of paper around with me ever again. So I cycle to work, and on the day I had a lot of marking to carry home, my bag would be much heavier, and it would be frustrating having to carry all that work home. I'm never going to have to do that again. All of my work is going to be saved in my OneNote, and I can mark it on my laptop at home, on my desktop at home, on my phone, and I don't have to worry about carrying pieces of paper around. I'm never going to lose it again either. It's always going to be there. Plus, I've got a record of all the marking that I've done. So I can show, Ofsted, if they want to see the marking that I've done, the level of my interaction that I, do with my students' work and the feedback that I give. It's all there electronically because I've saved it. It's in PDF files and I've emailed it to my students. So that definitely is going to change something that I do going forward.